Alright guys, welcome back to VALORANT News. Massive update on the Rostermania side today, again, especially with regard to 100T, what their plan is going to be, what Cloud9 are up to as well, and also, where is Ye going? Currently not linked to really any rosters as it stands, but it feels highly unlikely the Ye will be sitting out the season again. Which teams should and will be interested over the coming days and weeks? Very much interested your thoughts in the comments. Hit the like button if you enjoy. Subscribe if you're new as always, I greatly appreciate it. Bodog also reckons that this is going to be a pretty crazy off-season. We have many interesting updates as well today. Firstly, just this one, again, pretty outrageous. Certain individuals just blatantly stream sniping, and I know that they're doing this for content, and I don't know if Riot really seem to care about this right now, but there is an argument to say that realistically, this is basically cheating, right? And when you see clips come out like this of players blatantly doing it, and it's difficult for players such as Shazam, because Shazam has been... I think a lot of people make fun of Shazam because he thinks everyone's stream sniping, but you can't blame him when a lot of the people actually are. And even though some people that he probably accuses aren't, there are a lot of people that he accuses that he has very good reason to. Net comments on this as well, who is still at the guard net, but it's quite likely going to be G2 net in the near future. There was also talk about what Shazam's going to do. He did address this on stream and say that if the guard guys do sign for G2, as is the present rumor, he won't be a part of that. At least, you know, he's not going to force himself in there type thing. And likely well, if Valin stays, then they wouldn't need Shazam to IGL. But it's possible they could find room for Shazam, depending on what happens with Cloud9, because we think that Shazam had a trial with Cloud9, and that that's a possibility. So, you know, Shazam's options are probably limited to Cloud9 and to G2, his current organization. So maybe there's other options, right? We know 100 Thieves might be building something special as well, or at least making some big changes. We know FNS and SOM, they're going to need a team. So there's so many talking points at the moment as to what's happening here. Quickly as well from Moose, who has officially been released by Shopify Rebellion. So they're going to run it back, it seems, next season in the Tier 2 Challenger side. They have a spot over there, but Moose is not going to be part of that. Now, this is actually one of the biggest updates of the day here from Safe, who says expect the very unexpected. And, you know, they're all baiting, you know how it is. And then we get this one, though, from, again, solid sources, suggesting that Safe, formerly of Liquid, is going to leave Liquid and go to join Team Vitality, which is really quite the transition in the EMEA side. One of the better players, I thought, for that Liquid team, but they are seemingly making some pretty big changes, and Safe to Vitality, a likely possibility as it stands. We also have to wonder what Zeta are cooking up, because they've confirmed, as of yesterday, that along with recruiting members for next year, we are also recruiting one staff member to act as a departmental interpreter manager, i.e., to interpret between languages, which either implies they're gonna, okay, mainly Japanese team, are they gonna sign an English coach? Or are they gonna sign a player, potentially, that also doesn't necessarily speak great Japanese or isn't Japanese of origin? So that really does make things pretty interesting as to what this might be. As I say, it could be a coach, could be an analyst, or someone they want to sign that they want to get that isn't necessarily fluent in Japanese, but it could be a player as well, possibly, although that does seem a little bit less likely because, you know, the interpreter can't be there with you in the game itself to translate the call-outs, can he? So I guess that's one to think about, and we will come back to this in a second because there's been some funny rumors about Aspas, and I think this is one of the big questions I have is like, what's happening with Aspas, what's happening with Ye are two of the big questions that we sit with. Now, this is another big rumor. This actually went around a couple of weeks ago now that PaperX were going to sign Monyet as their new player for the PaperX roster. Now, this apparently, according to this source, that I have no idea if these sources are legitimate or not, to be perfectly honest, but, you know, he says, I wish this is true, I wish I was kidding, but I trust my source, actually, is what he says. So I don't know, right? This is kind of the first we've heard of potentially any sort of done deal with regard to PaperX, and this quite possibly is not true. But I will say that this name was linked to PaperX a couple of weeks ago now, so it's possible that he is going to be the replacement for Jing, but there are other candidates that, you know, maybe would be better, but also would be linked there as well. So I'm not sure I quite believe this one quite yet until I see it from some other sources. This as well, though, from, again, good sources, Alejandro here, discussing Zix. So we said yesterday that Evil Genius's kind of assistant coach, right, who parted ways with them just a couple of days ago now, will join 100 Thieves as to be the head coach of their team. This, I think, is good for 100 Thieves, and it seems like they are, again, we don't think the 100T are going to spend crazy amounts of money, right? They're not going to be signing big players for massive salaries, but they can get potentially big players for lesser salaries because it's not like that many organizations are paying crazy money anymore. 100 Thieves, I think, have been quite clear they don't intend to. But I think some of the questions have been, ever since Sean Gares left, the coaching situation on Thieves hasn't felt quite as good, and Mike's HD feels like he's been maybe somewhat outclassed by some of the other coaching and the teams that are going around. So bringing Zix in as well seems to be a positive and a good idea, and 100 Thieves now are apparently doing something. What are they cooking up? We don't really know, but they will be looking to make at least a couple of changes, which might open the door to either players from M80, which is definitely possible, or maybe even the likes of FNS and SOM. Now, the thing is for FNS and SOM is that they're not going to be part of NRG anymore. I think that's quite clear. Chet wants to run it back with Victor and Crashies. They probably bring Marved in. That leaves FNS and SOM looking for, as a duo, as a package deal for their own thing. Now, FNS wants to join a team that's going to allow him to basically make the calls. I think that's going to be difficult to accomplish, and it might, FNS and SOM might have to sit out or wait out or change their mind on what they're looking for here if they want to find a team. It could be a challenging one for them. 100 Thieves is an option, potentially, but 100 Thieves probably isn't going to pay anything crazy money, to our understanding. They're on the more budget side, because they're trying to be sensible, which a lot of organizations right now probably aren't. And I know that SOM did say that, well, money will be a factor, because if they want to play but they're not making anything big, they might as well stream, So that's kind of one of the debates that's being had. So big changes you've got to expect here for 100 Thieves happening, at least behind the scenes. Some would say keep the roster, run it back. I don't think that's a good idea, personally, and I think it's very difficult to imagine that actually happening. So let's look at Flynn's latest spreadsheet as of yesterday. Some interesting updates on here, especially with regard to the teams I mentioned. Just wanted to say that on the Pacific side, these 3 players, including Lakia, are being linked to Detonation. So I think it seems like Detonation, instead of going for the Japanese team, they're possibly going to look for some South Korean players. And these are the players that are currently being linked over there. So that's interesting, but they're on Detonation, not Zeta, right? Because as we see on this graphic here, his initial one, it had those players on Zeta. So, just honest mistake. And this is what it's looking like right now in the Pacific. Few interesting options, but as of yet, he doesn't know or doesn't have a player linked to PaperX as their 5th man. But, Monye maybe. We'll see about that one. This is EMEA though, right? As we said, Vitality making these changes with Safe. Apparently that's now basically a done deal entirely. Also Redgar, with Safe departing, that's made it more likely that Redgar stays on Liquid and doesn't go to Carmine Corp. So possibly a 3-man change, well, 2-man change, I guess, on Liquid, with Jampy, Redgar and Nats staying, Soulcast and Safe to be gone. That seems the most likely possibility at the moment. Maybe even Nevera to Vitality as well. So these are some of the players that are currently being linked. Really interesting developments, actually, it's got to be said, over the last couple of days. But the Americas is going pretty wild right now, especially when we've seen what Sentinels are doing. We think we know what John QT is doing at becoming their new in-game leader. But the 2 teams I'm really looking at here are Cloud9 and 100 Thieves. We also have Valin, not, let's say, unlikely to be on NRG anymore. So they'll need an IGL, potentially. That's probably not going to be Valin, because he's likely going to go to G2, back to join up with those guys. Leaf maybe as their 5th man. We'll see about that. John QT is going to be on Sentinels. FNS is on the bench or potentially going to be gone. So I wonder where that leaves NRG from a kind of IGLing perspective, should they need one, which they likely will. But Cloud9, so Jake is going to be there. Flyer is now got into the likely position, and then we have a load of trials. So Rooney is now not likely, Leaf, Zeppa, Cupid, Zelsis is gone, we know. So right now it's looking like potentially Oxy, BCJ, even Screwface is here. BCJ, I think, is a really interesting one. I can definitely see Oxy coming on. I would quite like to see, Shazam, maybe Jake, like Fly. I don't know how you'd make the roles work exactly, but Shazam and Oxy would be quite a nice duo to come over from G2. BCJ, I really like that acquisition if they get that done, just because what it means for the team, but also what it means for a potential nice little rivalry with Evil Geniuses, right? Because BCJ is going to want to beat EG and prove that them dropping it was a bad idea, despite the fact that they basically proved that dropping it was a good idea with how they performed at the end of the season. So that's that's Cloud9, but 100 Thieves. So, according to this spreadsheet, Cryo, Asuna, Bang quite possibly will stay. I think it's very likely Cryo and Asuna stay. I'm still not sure about Bang, but it seems like Derek and Stella are now quite possibly could leave. The players that are being linked are actually EU and Flyer and potentially Xander. Xander would be a big acquisition, I think, for 100 Thieves, and he's been a player that people have talked about in connection with 100 Thieves for a long time now. Flyer, we think, is more likely to be a Cloud9 pickup, but that's possible as well. And then EU as well. So a lot of these guys from M80, with the exception of Nismo, because Nismo's basically said, like, last man standing, which seems to imply that pretty much all of his teammates, maybe with the exception of Koala Noob, I don't know, will be taking up offers elsewhere. And to be fair, I can't blame Nismo for wanting to stay with M80, because I think they can build a great team around him again anyway. And, you know, with the guard getting promoted, M80 probably feel like they can actually just win Ascension next year, hands down, and qualify themselves. So we'll see, because Nismo might prefer to do that rather than take an opportunity on the tier 1 level that doesn't seem quite so good. We've got to mention, though, what's going on with Ye, what's going on with Aspas, because Ye was also calling out Nerd Street here, because I think they owe players a fair bit of money, and they're just doing more tournaments rather than actually paying it out, which is not ideal at all. But Ye will not be found anywhere on these spreadsheets right now. Aspas has not been linked anywhere else. He still is considered a possibility to leave Loud, but he's not been linked to another team yet. We don't have any rumours about that. Ye is not anywhere to be found yet. And as I've said, there might be a few teams there Ye could slot into. Definitely possible. Especially if he is willing to run a Sentinel role, like he said, rather than just be a duelist, which is definitely plausible as well. But yeah, where's Ye? Like, I don't really understand. What teams should be interested? Could Ye be getting an offer from a team out in, you know, even big money in tier 2, or, you know, big money out in Asia Pacific or something, or in Chinese region, right? We don't really know, and you know, hopefully Ye lands somewhere, but for now it's strange to not really see him linked to any of these rosters. I will say there's been a funny theory going around, and I don't think there's any truth behind this, that Zeta Division, because as we saw, right, they're looking for a translator, not to speculate, but Aspas was playing Valorant in Japanese during Champions in A. I'm definitely speculating, no way this would happen. So, you know, I think people are just joking around on this, but yeah, I don't know. What do you guys think about that, right? He obviously likes his anime, so maybe Aspas to Japan to Zeta Division could be a possibility. I don't know. But that's the thing. If he's only like a 50-50 chance he stays on Loud, you got to think, like, where is he going to go out? Where else is he going to go? You know, like, where's Aspas going to go if that's not going to be the case? It's kind of difficult to figure out at the moment. So very much intrigued to your thoughts in the comments below. If you guys want another great video to watch, we put together a fantastic documentary on the rise and fall and potentially rise again in the near future of Sentinels on the Breaking Point Valorant channel. Boys did a great job putting this together, scripting it and everything. It's awesome video. So if you guys want something entertaining to watch after this, feel free to check that out. We'll link it down below, all that good stuff. Hit the like button if you enjoyed. Subscribe if you're new. Take care, and I'll see you next time.